is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Fatima Nawzil. It's Monday, the 17th of July, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. First, Chinese President Xi Jinping meets with former Philippine President Rodrigo Roa Duterte at the Diaoyutai State Guest House in Beijing. Our partner from CGTN will give us a live report later on from China. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the upcoming BRICS Summit in South Africa will proceed face-to-face, shutting down rumors of a virtual summit. In the United States, at least 12 people died and 34 others were injured from mass shootings over the weekend. Each 9 incidents reported in the Gun Violence Archive claimed at least 1 life. And following 5 days of heavy rains in South Korea, at least 40 people lost their lives and several others remain missing. President Yoon Suk-yeol has ordered an all-out rescue and recovery effort. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. Moments ago, Chinese President Xi Jinping met with former Philippine President Rodrigo Roa Duterte at the Diaoyutai State Guest House in Beijing. Our partner Zhang Chunying from CGTN will give us a live update from Beijing, China. Chunying, good evening.
Good evening. It's my great pleasure. Well, as you just mentioned, President Xi Jinping met with former Philippine President Duterte at the Diaoyutai State Guest House in Beijing today. And during their meeting, Chinese president spoke highly of Mr. Duterte's contribution to improving China-Philippine ties and bringing the bilateral relations back on its track, which, as President Xi put it, is in line with the interests of people in the Philippines. And President Xi also pointed out that China pursues the concept of neighborhood diplomacy based on amity, sincerity, mutual benefit, and inclusiveness, and has always insisted on building friendship and partnership with its neighbors, and that China has always attached importance to China-Philippines relations. And President Xi also expressed his willingness to work with the Philippines to promote the steady and long-term development of the bilateral ties. And for his side, Duterte also expressed his gratitude to China for the country's valuable support for the economic and social development of the Philippines, especially for China's help and support during the pandemic. He added that the booming ties between the two countries were in line with the wish of the majority of Philippines people, and as well, and the interest of the two peoples as well. He also expressed his willingness to continue to play a constructive role when it comes to promoting the friendship between the two countries. That's all for me. Back to you.
Yes, Chunying, if we may ask, what are the implications of this meeting between former President Duterte and Chinese President Xi Jinping on Philippine-China relations?
Well, yeah, as I just mentioned, Mr. Duterte has played a very significant role when it comes to improving the bilateral ties. So the meeting, I think, first of all, it serves as a platform for Chinese president to reiterate China's willingness, for both sides to reiterate their willingness to further promote the bilateral relations and to seek more common grounds and seek more opportunities for win-win cooperation. And that is very crucial, I think, for the further improvement of the bilateral relations, both socially and economically. And so hopefully after the meeting, we're going to see more people-to-people exchanges, more economic cooperation, and also more, more strengthened ties when it comes to social development as well. Yeah, that's all from me. Back to you.
Thank you, Chunying, for that live update from Beijing, China. Meanwhile, in other stories, a company has a solution to help President Bongbong Marcos reach his target of 1 million houses per year. MJ Mondihar reports from Shanghai.
Believe it or not, the 11-story building you're currently watching was constructed in just over 1 day. That's how advanced home construction has become in China. The Broad Group, based in Hunan Province, is behind this technology. According to Stanley Chen, head for overseas deployment at the company, they can erect an 11-story building in just over 27 hours.
We can erect an 11-story building in about 27 hours, 45 minutes. Right, considering everything was being prefabricated right in the manufacturing plants.
But you may be wondering what the interior of these houses look like. Here they are, fully furnished and made of durable and modern materials. These houses are called modular housing, similar to the concept of container houses that are currently popular. But the materials used here are different from literal shipping containers because they are made from stainless steel, which is lighter and more durable. According to the company, apart from the quality of their modular houses, they have also their air filtering system inside, using their green technology. Even the bedrooms and bathrooms are clean and modern. The kitchen of the house is also equipped with a convection system for cooking. All of these components are prefabricated in their world-class plant. Afterward, they are delivered to the respective countries of destination.
Mga kababayan, isa lamang ito sa kanilang mga factory kung saan nila ginagawa ang kanilang mga materyales sa pagtatayo ng mga dekalibreng bahay, and mananatili ang commitment ng kumpanyang ito na tulungan ng pamahalaan na maresolba yung problema natin sa backlog sa pabahay.
According to the Broad Group, they can help President Bongbong Marcos achieve the administration's target of 1 million housing units. And they can lower the price of modular houses when produced in large quantities.
It's not going to be drastically high. However, we're going for quality. I guess this will be the fastest way to help a nation like yours to resolve the housing problem.
The Broad Group already has projects in the Philippines, and they're willing to expand their operations and partnerships, especially with the government. If successful, the Marcos administration could produce 6 million houses, and private sector entities are willing to contribute to achieving this goal. For Ganamable of Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
Saudi Arabia welcomed the Prime Minister of Japan as the East Asian country aims to boost ties with nations in the Middle East. Melchizedek Cadiz reports.
Assalamualaikum. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman welcomed Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida as his three-nation tour of the Middle East begins. The Saudi Crown Prince received Kishida at Al Salam Palace in Jeddah. The two leaders discussed the means of collaboration between both countries and how to strengthen the Saudi-Japan Vision 2030. They also focused on means of cooperation in various sectors such as investment opportunities in a wide range of industries including clean energy, mining, healthcare, and digital technologies. Both sides are expected to agree on joint investments to develop rare earth resources. Kishida's Middle East tour started on Sunday in Saudi Arabia before traveling to the UAE and Qatar this week. More than 80% of Japan's total crude oil imports are sourced from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. Japan aims to position itself as a reliable partner in the region as the East Asian economy depends on most of its energy imports from the Middle East. Barakallahu fikum jami'an, kan hada Melchizedek Cadiz sa Akhbar SMNI, Kuwait.
On Sunday, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida left for the Middle East to promote cooperation in energy. Kent Hashimoto gives us updates on this trip.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida began his 4-day trip to Arab states by meeting with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to further strengthen the two countries' cooperation in the energy sector.
The talks were held in Jeddah on the west coast of the Arabian Peninsula, Sunday, where the two leaders agreed to share technology in order to support the decarbonization and economic diversification of the Middle Eastern nation. While the country continues to give and provide Japan a stable access to oil imports, Kishida and the Saudi Arabia Crown Prince signed 26 memorandums of cooperation in the energy sector, including one where Tokyo will provide Riyadh with technologies that expand the country's solar power generation capabilities and innovations using a clean fuel source of hydrogen and ammonia. It can be noted that Russia's invasion of Ukraine pushed up prices of crude oil, and during the meeting, the two leaders agreed to reaffirm its efforts to remain stabilized in the global oil market, since one-third of Japan's import of oil are all coming from Saudi Arabia. Kishida said after meeting with the Crown Prince, and I quote, "We are shifting away from the existing relationship of an oil importer and an exporter, and will deepen a new global partnership for the decarbonization era," end of quote. Aside from talks concerning the energy sector, the two leaders also agreed to begin a strategic dialogue to further strengthen their bilateral cooperation.
Following Kishida's visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Japanese Prime Minister is also expected to travel to the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. Ijo Nihon kara Nashimoto Kento deshita. SMNI News, Japan.
In the new episode of The Deep Probe on Thursday, the discussion was centered on war staged by the United States to earn trillions of dollars for its military-industrial complex that was meant to boost its economy. Ina Mortel has the details.
And thank you, Jamel, and all the
U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s foreign policy speech became the center of discussion in the new episode of The Deep Probe in relation to the peace speech of his uncle, former U.S. President John F. Kennedy. In this episode, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, together with the SMNA panel of experts and anchors, discussed America's bloody history in fighting different countries, or the so-called forever war. The said panel of experts comprises of Attorney Harry Roque, Dr. Lorraine Badoy, and Jeffrey K. Eric Celis. Attorney Roque emphasized that America uses its military-industrial complex to boost its economy.
Napakalaking pera ang gera. Kaya every opportunity, itong mga yumayaman sa gera, sila yung nagpapa-escalate ng conflict. Kaya ngayon, bato-bato sa karagatan ng pinag-aawayan sa West Philippine Sea. And yet, ang gusto nila, magkagera.
According to a part of Robert Kennedy's speech, the U.S. former President Eisenhower already warned that its military-industrial complex could destroy the country's democracy. Based on the list published by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute in 2020, 5 of the top arms manufacturers and military service companies are from the United States, including Lockheed Martin, Raytheon Technologies, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and the General Dynamics Corp.
Itong military-industrial complex is the response to economic decay in the U.S.
Yes.
Parang naging economic development strategy nila. Hindi na bali yung ekonomiya natin sa ating Amerika, sa bansa nila. Dahil kahit anong mangyari dyan, kikita tayo pag nagkaroon ng gera. So yan yung substitute nila for genuine economic development sa Amerika. So imbis na gastusin nila ang kanilang pundo galing sa kaban ng bayan para magkaroon ng mas masiglang ekonomiya doon sa Amerika, pinopokus nila ngayon sa gera. Kasi after all, ang benta niya sa gobyerno alone is $1 trillion.
Yes.
At siguro sa buong daigdig, aabot yan ng 5 to 10 trillion.
The basis of war policy is the industrial complex kung saan halos 60% ng ekonomiya ng Amerika in the last decade nakasandig sa pag-produce ng mga war armaments and war armageddons na ginagamit niya para magdigma.
According to Pastor Apollo, the war happening now in Ukraine is an example of strengthening the arms economy.
Sinabi ni Atty. Roque kanina, ang kanilang focus na kanilang ekonomiya ay warcraft.
Yeah, warcraft.
Puro doon sa gera. Sa Ukraine alone, they have poured in $100 billion. Wala pang bali yung mga armas na pinadala doon at lahat-lahat na. At ngayon, nagagalit pa nga si Zelensky dahil kulang pa. At na-disappoint nga si President Biden sa sinabi niya eh. So, yun ang nakikita natin na nawala na yung creativity ng mga Americans. Kasi wala na silang GDP na ipapatong doon sa kanilang currency.
Yes.
While China has all the creativity.
Overtaken
Kaya
siya, Pastor, ha?
overtaken, no? Kasi negosyo nga sa kanila eh. Trade ang kanila. They call it shared development.
Shared development.
According to Attorney Harry Roque, there is already a proxy war here in Asia in which the country is included because of the disputed territories, and Taiwan because of the one-country, two-system policy that China is implementing there. Roque stressed that the Americans only use the term freedom of navigation to interfere with territorial issues.
Alam nyo, dito sa ating bansa, meron din proxy war. Ang pinalalabas nila, ang naglalabanan ay Pilipinas at China. Kasi ang mga Amerikano, hindi naman yan naniniwala doon sa titulo natin sa mga pinag-aagawang isla.
Exactly.
Palagi nilang sinasabi, hindi kami naghihimasok sa pinag-aagawang isla. Ang interest nila ay yung freedom of navigation. Pero, ang sinasabi nila, sasaklolohan namin kayo Pilipinas kapag kayo atakihin. Dahil importante sa amin ang freedom of navigation. So, ibig sabihin, dahil wala naman tayong kakayahan para tumayo at lumaban sa China, ang isa pang proxy war ay itong nangyayari sa ating sariling bansa. Na ang totoo niyan, ang Amerika ang makikipaglabang sa China dahil ayaw niya yung nakikita niya na baka maging mas mayaman at mas malakas pa sa kanya ang China.
True.
At meron pang isang proxy war, yung Taiwan. Yung Taiwan, kung tatanungin mo, nagkaroon na ng survey, halos lahat ng Taiwanese sinabi, wala kaming problema sa status quo. Ang nagsasabi lang na didepensahan namin ng Taiwan ay yung Amerika na estranghero naman sa Taiwan.
Exactly.
So another proxy war ang mangyayari dyan. Hindi po yan Taiwan and China, it is the US and China. Hindi naman magpapakamatay yung Pilipino siguro dahil sa mga bato-bato at isda, no?
Correct.
Pero ang Amerika, talagang sinasabi niya, eto na ang next flashpoint for conflict.
In addition to this, Roque said that the trouble between neighboring countries in Asia is also caused by colonialism.
Ang hidwaan nagsimula dahil sa kolonyalismo, dahil sa pagdating ng mga puti dito sa ating lugar sa Asia.
Meanwhile, according to Dr. Lorraine Badoy, the United States doesn't seem to be thinking because they are starting a war but can't even solve their own domestic problems like drug addiction and gun violence.
Complex is, I'm sorry, in the psychological sense, the complex is unthinking. It's like parang mob mentality, hindi na nag-iisip.
Okay,
Kasi kumbaga ikaw ang Amerikano, nakikipag-away ka ng ganyan, nagmamaniobra ka halfway around the world and yet your own people are dying from drug addiction, all sorts of things, no? All these shootings, mass shootings, then there's something wrong. You're not even looking inside yourself anymore. You're starting wars halfway around the world and in fact aggressive wars, no? Wars that are not even fought in self-defense.
Moreover, what is happening now in some Asian countries is similar to the events in Ukraine that, according to the Deep Probe panel of experts, could stage a nuclear war. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Ina Mortel, SMNI News.
The Deep Probe tackled how the world is at a very similar crossroads 60 years ago with Robert Kennedy Jr.'s foreign policy speech and how the proxy war currently happening in Ukraine could happen in Asia amid the rising tensions and America's provocation of China. Jade Calabroso files this report.
60 years have passed since the late U.S. President John F. Kennedy delivered a historic speech for peace that moved the hearts of millions of Americans and people around the world. But Kennedy's warning of an endless, senseless war still echoes up to this day, amid rising nuclear tensions between superpowers and especially what America had become today. The late U.S. President's speech was echoed by his nephew, Democrat presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr.'s foreign policy speech, which was thoroughly discussed in the second episode of SMNA's The Deep Probe with Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy and SMNA anchors Dr. Lorraine Badoy, Attorney Harry Roque, and Jeffrey K. Eric Celis. According to Kennedy Jr., the world is currently at a very similar crossroads to JFK's time. And just like 60 years ago, the people have a unique opportunity to diffuse such tensions by taking a different towards peace.
My uncle's commitment to peace bore fruit in the Limited Testament Treaty of August 1963, but his assassination that November turned the nation down another path. His successors have launched one war after another, along with the ceaseless expansion of our military.
Also, one of the centers of discussion is the so-called forever war or endless war with no clear conditions or results, and how the United States was shaped from a peaceful country, now an empire.
Every empire ends itself through the expansion of the military, overexpansion of its military abroad. And the founders knew that. John Quincy Adams spoke for all of them when he said, America goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. Today, I want to recall that memory because this forever war, which has so drained our nation's vitality, now threatens to plunge the world into the unspeakable horror of nuclear Armageddon.
The so-called forever war and the ceaseless military expansion was also among the center of discussion, and how America poses itself as a peaceful nation despite waging war in various countries across the world.
So, ito yung espiritu ng Amerika ngayon na sinabi ni Robert Kennedy.
When you build empire by war,
Yes.
it will come back to you and destroy your empire, even your own country.
So,
maganda.
kung ganon, palaging ganon ang sinabi ni Robert Kennedy dito, kung ganon tayo, sabi niya, that if we try that, to make ourselves an imperial nation abroad, that we would turn into a surveillance state.
Yun.
Puro suspicion, kahit mabuti ang ginagawa mo, pag nasuspekan ka, titirahin ka na. That we would turn into a surveillance state, a garrison state. Ngayon, ang Pilipinas, mayroong 17 na EDCA sites. Nagiging garrison tayo. A security state at home. O pati sa kanila. And that we would also destroy our economy as happens with every empire.
RFK is referring to the current situation in Ukraine, saying that although he abhors Russia's invasion, the people must understand that the American government has also contributed to its circumstances through deliberate provocations of Russia going back to the 90s.
Ano ba yung concern ng Russia ngayon? Ito nga yung kasaysayan eh. Pinabayaan na niya na mapunta sa NATO ang Germany.
Yes.
Umalis siya ng Eastern Germany, bagamat inoccupy niya Eastern Germany dahil natatakot siya na yung mga Amerikano at kanyang mga alay ay pwedeng lusubin siya at nasa tabi lang niyang teritoryo niyang Eastern Germany dahil nga doon sa pangako na hindi na sila pupunta doon sa Eastern Europe. Pero ngayon anong nangyari? Nag-expand ang NATO to 14 nations. Kasama na ngayon ng Sweden, kasama na ngayon ang Finland, na dati-rate ay neutral.
Today, we have surrounded Russia. We have moved it not 1 inch to the east, but 1,000 miles and 14 nations. We have surrounded Russia with missiles and military bases, something that we would never tolerate if the Russians did that to us.
If you put your shoes on Vladimir Putin's,
Yes, of course.
where are those missiles going?
Yeah.
And these are all NATO countries. Where are all of those missiles pointing? Naturally to Russia. And if you put yourself in Vladimir Putin's shoes, what would you think?
Yeah.
It's a provocation. It's a thing that will trigger me to just, go ahead and protect my country first.
While of course we don't agree with what Putin has done, he's not the only madman here. No? So, kasi ang ginagawa kasi ng Amerika, they vilify the Russians, di ba?
Sila lang
They're the
masama.
only bad guys. They make it black and white, but that's not the truth. Ang layo sa katotohanan. It's America that's been doing all these machinations, no? And setting the theater for war.
According to the American University, as of 2021, the United States has around 750 base sites outside its own country, located in around 80 foreign countries and colonies. This number does not include the bases that will be built in the Philippines under the EDCA agreement. American University said that the sheer number of bases, secrecy, and lack of transparency of the base network make a complete list impossible. The deep probe also discussed America's pretext of their seemingly deceptive reasons for their involvement in wars.
And statements from our government officials and think tanks lay out the goals for the Ukraine war. Regime change in Russia, the overthrow of Vladimir Putin. This is what President Biden has said is our purpose in the Ukraine. The disabling and exhaustion of the Russian military and the dismembering of the Russian Federation. None of these objectives have anything to do with helping the Ukraine, which of course was the pretext for our involvement in the war. That's when our leaders told us that we were there for a humanitarian mission.
This is for humanitarian mission. Yes.
Para daw sa atin yun.
Yes.
Kabutihan daw natin. Ang bait nila.
They sent that to Ukraine also.
Bait na Amerika.
They were there for a humanitarian mission. That's when our leaders told us we were there for humanitarian mission. But they've since acknowledged that there is a broader geopolitical agenda and that Ukraine simply is a pawn in a proxy war between the United States and Russia.
According to RFK, warmongers inside U.S. leaderships pretend that a war is winnable, which is a dangerous lie, an illusion which JFK's Defense Secretary Robert McNamara called as mass psychosis. Pastor Apollo meanwhile pointed out America's unipolar thinking and self-grandeur that was likely admitted by RFK in his speech when he questioned if U.S. President Joe Biden was willing to extend an olive branch to Russian President Vladimir Putin, just like what the previous American presidents had done in their time.
I'm reminded of that quote of Margaret Atwood, war is what happens when language fails. When we cannot anymore talk to each other.
America has broken off practically all diplomatic contact with Russia, so that communication has indeed become little more than an exchange of threats and insults. FDR met with Stalin, JFK met with Khrushchev, Nixon met with Brezhnev, Reagan met with Gorbachev. Can't Biden meet with Putin? The question now is, are we willing to do anything like that today? Or are we going to remain stuck in a self-righteous story in which America is categorically good and our opponents are irredeemably evil? If we remain stuck there, so will every other nation.
Naging unipolar world ang tingin ng Amerika sa kanilang sarili. That they are entitled, like gods, to own the whole world, and to being a unipolar world, that kind of mentality, lahat sakop mo na, pinakikialaman mo na, parang ikaw ang tatay ng buong mundo. Huwag mong gawin yan, huwag mong gawin ito. O gawin mo yan, ito. Tulad sa atin ngayon, gusto tayo, Marawi Seeds, bibili na tayo ng baril doon para gamitin. Hindi tayo binigyan. Bili tayo ng aeroplano, hindi pwede kasi ganun.
Ayaw nila kay Duterte.
Ayaw nila. So, ganun ang pagkakaalam ko na bakit ganito ang kanilang mentalidad. Sapagkat unipolar na ang kanilang thinking na sila lang ang may karapatan sa buong mundo. Mamahala at mag-decide para kung kanino. Kahit ang Europe, tali-tali ng liig nila.
Even ang NATO, creation ng Amerika yan.
Yan,
The Deep Probe panelist pointed out the comparison between the proxy war in Ukraine and the tensions in the West Philippine Sea and the Taiwan issue.
Alam niyo, dito sa ating bansa, meron din proxy war. Ang pinalalabas nila, ang naglalabanan ay Pilipinas at China. Kasi ang mga Amerikano, hindi naman yan naniniwala doon sa titulo natin sa mga pinag-aagawang isla.
Exactly.
Palagi nilang sinasabi, hindi kami naghihimasok sa pinag-aagawang isla. Ang interest nila ay yung freedom of navigation. Pero, ang sinasabi nila, sasaklolohan namin kayo Pilipinas kapag kayo atakihin. Dahil importante sa amin ang freedom of navigation. So ibig sabihin, dahil wala naman tayong kakayahan para tumayo at lumaban sa China, ang isa pang proxy war ay itong nangyayari sa ating sariling bansa. Na ang totoo niyan, ang Amerika ang makikipaglabang sa China dahil ayaw niya yung nakikita niya na baka maging mas mayaman at mas malakas pa sa kanya ang China.
Amid the escalating tensions that could trigger a nuclear Armageddon, RFK urged Americans to re-examine their attitude as America is struggling with its demoralized society and decaying economic infrastructure. He believes that the solution to de-escalating the conflict and ending the vicious war cycle is genuine peace that comes from within and will start from a changed attitude.
Peace comes from a different place. It starts by seeing within others and within ourselves that which is not selfish, but is brave and generous and idealistic and has good intentions. I therefore call on our present leadership to adopt President Kennedy's maxims and to start de-escalating right now. I call on them to fulfill John F. Kennedy's declaration. I call on the military establishment to exercise disciplined self-restraint. I call upon the State Department to avoid unnecessary irritants and hostile rhetoric. And here's the most important thing of all. I call on every American to join in a new peace movement, to make your voices heard, to reject the insanity of escalation, and to celebrate no longer the wartime president, but a president who keeps the peace.
Reporting for SM8 News, this has been Jade Calabroso.
Meanwhile, a number of gun-related violence were recorded over the weekend in the United States, killing 12 people and injuring 34 others. Hans Marshall files this report.
Gun violence remains to be a major problem in the United States, with at least 9 states reporting mass shootings on the 15th and 16th of July. According to Gun Violence Archive, an online repository and database, 6 states had reported mass shootings on Saturday. In Memphis, Tennessee, 1 person was killed and 4 others were injured, with authorities saying that the 2 suspects were wearing white ski masks and left the scene in a black Dodge Charger. In Antioch, California, 1 person died and 3 others were injured after multiple gunmen opened fire, with authorities still investigating who was behind the incident. In Hampton, Georgia, a 40-year-old suspect who was allegedly behind the death of 4 people in Henry County was killed after he got into a shootout with police. The aftermath of the incident led to the injury of 3 officers. These were just some of the incidents that took place on Saturday. Meanwhile, on Sunday, gun-related violence were reported in Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, California, and Dallas, Texas. At least 1 person died in each of the 3 separate incidents on Sunday, while 12 others were injured all in all. The said incidents recorded over the weekend each separately led to the death of at least 1 individual. So far in 2023, the total number of mass shootings is nearing the 400 mark. This is Hans Marshall reporting, SM9 News.
Another incident occurred on the Crimean Bridge, which claimed the lives of civilians and injured a child. Russia also accused Ukraine of staging the attack. Let's find out what we know about this so far with Jane Godita.
Another grave incident occurred on the Crimean Bridge, which claimed the lives of civilians. Russia's Belgorod governor Vyacheslav Gladkov confirmed that 2 parents died in an emergency on the Crimean Bridge, while their child was injured with moderate severity. The incident took place at around 3 a.m. in Russia. Russia's head of Crimea, Sergei Aksinov, said that the traffic on the Crimean Bridge was stopped because of an emergency near the 145th support column from the Krasnodar territory. However, he did not reveal the cause of the emergency. But later, the Russian Ministry of Support confirmed that the road surface on the Crimean Bridge was damaged on the Crimea side, but refuted media reports that claimed the bridge supports were also affected. According to Russia's National Anti-Terrorist Committee, the Crimean Bridge, which serves as a key link between the Crimean Peninsula and mainland Russia, was attacked by 2 Ukrainian sea drones. But what is Moscow's reaction? Kremlin Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov said that Russia knows who is behind the terror attack, and that while law enforcement agencies continue enhancing their security, there are currently no discussions about additional measures in this matter. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova accused Ukraine of staging the Crimean Bridge attack, claiming that Ukraine is, quote, a terrorist and has all the hallmarks of being an international terrorist group. Zakharova also alleged that decisions by Ukrainian policymakers are made with direct participation of both American and British intelligence services as well as politicians. Also, it can be noted that on the same day, the Ukrainian government-run news agency Ukrinform said that the emergency was due to a nighttime attack conducted by the Security Service of Ukraine and the Ukrainian Navy, and unmanned surface vessels were used to attack the bridge. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials did not claim any responsibility. Still, they welcomed the incident. Mikhail Podolyak, a senior advisor to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, said that, quote, any illegal structures used to deliver Russian instruments of mass murder are necessarily short-lived, regardless of the reasons for the destruction, end of quote. Reporting, this has been Jane Cognita, SM9 News.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has confirmed that the BRICS Summit to be held in the country next month will take place in person. There have been suggestions that the event could happen virtually, but Ramaphosa says this will not be the case. CGTN's Yolisa Jamela has more.
The South African government has, over the past few months, come under pressure to take a decision over its hosting of the BRICS Summit. This is because there were murmurs that the summit could be moved to another country in one of the BRICS member countries or be held virtually. But governing ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says that won't be the case. Ramaphosa was speaking at the BRICS Business Council meeting in Sandton.
There was a rumor going around that this too could become an online summit. No, it's going to be face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and it's going to happen here.
The ANC president also spoke about the role South Africa plays within BRICS despite its small economy compared to the other four countries.
And many people often say we punch way above our welterweight or lightweight or whatever, or our weight. And indeed we do. But it also goes to show the important role that South Africa plays on the global stage as well. Much as we are a small country by population compared to the other big, gigantic BRICS member countries, we are seen as playing a very key strategic role, small and tiny as we are.
As part of South Africa's strategic intent to further advance the African developmental agenda within BRICS, Ramaphosa says the South African government has invited several African heads of state to come to the summit next month.
So the BRICS moment for us is not only going to be limited to the 5 countries, it's going to be much broader than that, as we put into practice what we call the BRICS outreach, Africa outreach, where we invite Africa to come as well.
At least 22 heads of state already confirmed their attendance at the summit, scheduled to take place in Johannesburg next month. Yolisa Jamela of Johannesburg, South Africa.
As the promotion of There are only a few days left before President Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s second State of the Nation address, wherein he is expected to report significant progress in his first year in office. Meanwhile, the president also mentioned certain issues before accepting Afghan refugees in the Philippines. Hannah Jane Sancho reports.
It is a constitutional obligation for the chief executive of the country to present his report to the people to show them promises made and plans that have been fulfilled under his administration. And this coming July 24, 2023. Filipinos will listen to the second State of the Nation address by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. But the question of many Filipinos is, what significant progress has the Marcos administration done so far? And how is the president preparing to present his report to the people?
Hindi ko pa naisip yung naisusuot ko. We've been worried about writing the speech. Ang SONA, gagawin kong SONA is a State of the Nation. It's a report to the people. Papakita natin, I would like to show, na ito yung pinag-usapan natin nung last year. Ito na ngayon ang nagawa natin. Ito pa yung kulang na gagawin namin. Ito yung plano.
President Marcos added that he will explain to Filipinos the steps taken by his administration and if the achievements of his programs are just words have been significant.
It's really very simple. It's just a performance report for Filipinos to see. Sa dami ng mga pronouncements, sa dami ng mga salita, kung ito ba may talagang may kabuluhan o salita lamang. So we'll see. And that's what I want to explain to people, that we have made significant progress. We have we can see the difference now, not only in terms of how the systems work, how the government works. It is also in how we are now seen or judged in the international in the international community. That's equally important.
Meanwhile, President Marcos said that request by the United States to allow the Afghan refugees in the Philippines does not have a deadline, insisting that obstacles must be ironed out before making a final decision when it comes to accepting them.
Well, we haven't given ourselves a deadline. What we are talking about is that we're trying to see what are the problems what issues are arising. And in so doing, we are trying to find ways to remedy those issues that we feel are something that we have to deal with.
Despite this, President Marcos believes that Filipinos uphold strong values when it comes to accepting refugees from other countries.
We have made some progress, but there's still some major obstacles to us being able to do it. But we continue to consult with our friends in the United States, and I would like to to manifest the Filipino instinct of hospitality. And as you know, many times has happened that there have been world situations around the world. And may mga nagkaka-refugee, hindi tinatanggap kahit saan tayo, tinatanggap natin. At hindi tayo kinakalimutan ng mga tinulungan natin. Ganyan talaga ang ugali ng Pinoy.
It can be remembered that some Philippine legislators expressed concern about accepting Afghan refugees in the country. Senator Amy Marcos said that the Philippines may not be ready, while Senator Jingo Estrada stressed that the Philippines must first address its housing backlog, then accept refugees into the country. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SM9 News.
The Marcos administration ensures that the Philippines will not lag behind in terms of healthcare access. Here's MJ Mondihar for the news.
President Bongbong Marcos inspected the site where the Clark Multi-Specialty Medical Center will be built in Pampanga, demonstrating his administration's commitment to upgrading the country's health facilities. According to the Department of Health, the public can expect more of these facilities in the future.
Ang magiging priority po ng Pangulo ay maparami pa yung mga tinatawag naming super health centers.
The administration will focus on the construction of multiple specialty hospitals to serve remote and far-flung areas, not only in Metro Manila, but also in provinces across the Philippines.
Ang ating Pangulo ay ayon ng magamba mga kababayan natin na wala pa rin silang napupuntahang mga pasilidad para sa pangkalusugan. Lalo na importante po ang naging epekto nito ngayong pandemic.
Currently, we only have 17 specialty hospitals, most of which were established during the time of former President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr. In March, President Marcos issued Executive Order 19 to establish a new heart center in Clark, expediting the process of building super health centers there.
Magkakaroon ngayon sa Clark ng panibagong heart center, kidney center, lung center, okay, at saka children's medical center.
If the government establishes new hospitals, there should be also new nurses, doctors, and medical and non-medical staff to operate them. However, the problem is that many healthcare workers are currently choosing to work abroad. Therefore, the DOH is now calling on nurses.
Nakipag-ugnayan kami sa PRC at Philippine Nurses Association. Ang dami na nagtapos at pumasang nurses. Kaya ng tanong, nasaan kayo? Nasaan kayo? Kailangan kayo ng ating bansa. Pumunta na kayo sa amin sapagkat hinihintay namin kayo sa matagal na panahon.
With that, Health Secretary Ted Ramaphosa has once said that the Department of Health will be proactive under his leadership. For Ganamabulog Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SM9 News.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines records another victory against the terrorist group CPP-NPA in the Visayas region after authorities recovered firearms, explosives, and other war materials. Almar Farsuelo has more.
The combined elements of the 42nd Infantry Battalion and Eastern Samar Police Provincial Office conducted a joint AFP-PNP focused military operation, or FMO, that resulted in the recovery of 11 firearms, 3 anti-personnel mines, and other war materials. Because of this, another victory was recorded on the part of the government troops. But this was a devastating loss on the part of the terrorist group CPP-NPA in the continuing localized peace engagement or LPE in Barangay Boko in Canavid, Eastern Samar on July 17, 2023. The focused military operation was launched after a testimony of a former rebel who returned to the folds of the government and revealed to authorities where leftist groups hid the said war materials. These include 4 M16 rifles, 5 M14 rifles, 1 M79 grenade launcher, 1 shotgun, 3 anti-personnel mines, 200 rounds of different live ammunition, and other war documents. Lieutenant General Benedict Arevalo, commander of Visayas Command or VISCOM, emphasized that the localized peace engagement has a huge part in the campaign against the terrorist group CPP-NPA in the Visayas region. Arevalo added that the said action is very effective in reducing the manpower and armed capability of the terrorists without the troops firing a single shot. It can be recalled that on June 18th, an NPA's armed cache containing 4 firearms and 4 anti-personnel mines were recovered by the government troops in Barangay Dao, Oras, Eastern Samar. This was made possible following a revelation from a former rebel brought about by the continuous engagement of the troops with the said former rebel. With this, Lieutenant General Arevalo again promises that they will continue the implementation of the localized peace engagement because of its good results in maintaining peace in their region. Furthermore, the official said that this is evidence that their only focus is to end the armed struggle and not to kill their fellow Filipinos. Lastly, Lieutenant General Arevalo lauded the troops on their relentless effort to attain peace, and he is also again encouraged the remaining members of CPP-NPA to return to the folds of the law, heed the call of our government. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Almar Forzuelo, SMNI News.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources is forming a group of experts to assess the impact of reclamation projects in Manila Bay. According to the agency, the group will be led by Filipino scientists. This report from Jason Rubrico.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR, continues to take measures to discuss and address the impact of the ongoing reclamation projects in Manila Bay. DENR Secretary Antonia Loizaga said that they are currently forming a composite group to lead the impact assessment of Manila Bay reclamation. It will be led by Filipino scientists, along with some experts from Japan, Singapore, and the United States.
So may kinakausap kaming local scientists, Filipino scientists, and we will be taking on some also from foreign expertise. There will be a composite team, different disciplines represented by Filipino scientists with advisory and expertise from foreign as well.
The DENR targets to form the said group this August. Meanwhile, on Monday morning, the agency conducted the second multi-stakeholder experts dialogue on reclamation. It aims to gather more necessary inputs for the ongoing review and enhancement of existing policies pertaining to reclamation projects. The discussion featured experts from the Embassy of Japan, Deltares, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers who presented on the global practice of reclamation.
Sana po makakatulong sa pag-formulate, pag-update, pag-generate ng bagong batas o polisiya at mga practices na based on international practice.
The Secretary hopes that the reclamation issues will be included in the upcoming State of the Nation address by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
We know that consistently the President will be making a statement that environmental sustainability is important for inclusive development. So doon po sana marinig po natin, pero confident po tayo na in this presidency nakikita po ni President Bongbong ang actual link between climate change, environment, and human development.
For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
China's National Bureau of Statistics has released a range of key economic indicators on Monday, including the economic data for the second quarter and the GDP for the first half of the year. Yang Chengxi reports.
China's gross domestic product grew by 5.5% year-on-year in the first half of 2023, despite the complex international environment and domestic challenges.
随着促进发展的积极因素累积增多
The market demand gradually recovered, production supply continued to increase, employment and prices remained stable, and residents' income grew steadily. The national economy showed a positive momentum of recovery.
Second quarter GDP growth stood at 6.3% year-on-year, the highest since the second quarter of 2021, and is in line with predictions made by China's central bank in June that forecasted a relatively high growth for Q2. However, many analysts who anticipated a high growth number for Q2 attributed to a low base of comparison, as growth in the same period last year was significantly impacted by COVID-19 control measures.
We must be aware that the international political and economic circumstances are intricate and complicated, and the foundation for sustained economic recovery at home is not yet solid.
This year, China's economy has faced internal and external pressures. When looking beyond the base factor, the country's growth challenges become more pronounced when comparing the second quarter growth with the first 3 months of 2023. Quarter-on-quarter GDP growth stood at 0.8%, slightly higher than the estimated 0.5% by analysts. China has set a GDP growth target of around 5% for this year. Analysts are closely watching how the new set of data will influence the government's future economic policies. Yang Chongxi, Beijing.
Thailand's front-runner for Prime Minister says he is open to stepping aside and letting his coalition partner form a new government. Chatmokol Pisumay Goson has the details.
Election winner and Move Forward Party leader Pithamlin Jalanrat admits the country can't wait too long to have the new government, saying he is willing to give coalition ally Pheu Thai Party a chance if he fails to become the Prime Minister in the parliamentary vote scheduled this week. Pitha, whose party scored a surprise victory during the general elections held in May, failed to secure enough votes during the Thai parliament's first round of voting for its next leader held last week. He only acquired 324 votes, or 51 votes short of the required 375 threshold. Of the 324 votes, only 13 of the 249 junta-appointed senators voted for him as the country's next prime minister. His 8-party coalition pledged to make ambitious reforms to the current constitution, but promised not to alter the status of the monarchy. The Move Forward Party leader will seek a second vote on Wednesday, July 19, which will be a pivotal moment for Pitha and his 8-party coalition, adding that if he fails again, he is willing to step aside and let Pheu Thai take the lead. In a video message posted on Saturday, Pitha urged his supporters to help him convince senators to support his nomination during the second parliamentary vote for Prime Minister on Wednesday. To win, Pitha needs to secure votes from more than half of the 749 members in Thailand, Parliament's upper and lower house. รายงานจากราชบุรีนายชัดมงคลพิสมัยโกศล SMS ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
At least 4 people were reported dead and a known number of people were declared missing after a ferry carrying dozens of passengers sank in a river in Bangladesh. Anis de Guzman has the news.
A heartbreaking tragedy struck Bangladesh overnight after a water bus carrying dozens of people on board overturned in the Buriganga River and claimed the lives of 4 people. The vessel was transporting passengers across the river when it was hit by a cargo vessel carrying sand. An estimated 50 to 60 people were on board when the incident took place on Sunday night. 8 people have been rescued and sent to hospitals. Rescue operations are ongoing in an effort to find the missing passengers. Maritime accidents are common in Bangladesh, with experts attributing the accidents to overcrowding, poor maintenance, and lax safety standards in shipyards. Riding boats is still common and a popular means of transportation in the South Asian country. In September of last year, another deadly incident struck after a boat full of Hindu devotees sank in the Karatoya River, killing 51 people. Disha Nanisa de Guzman, Rengan Chakuntep Mahanokon, SMNA News, Pratet Thai, Sawadee ka.
The Black Sea grain deal brokered by the United Nations and Turkey for Ukraine and Russia is set to expire on July 18th, with the UN and Ankara hopeful that it will be extended again. However, all hopes are dashed after Moscow announced its termination over alleged non-compliance by other parties. Russia quitting the deal will lead to a potential blow to the global food economy as wheat and corn prices and global commodities markets jumped on Monday after Moscow made their announcement. The Black Sea grain deal allows the export of grain from Ukraine, and the collapse of the pact threatens to push up food prices for consumers worldwide and tip millions into hunger. Trading data showed that August futures on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange rose 4.24% to $6.89 a bushel within minutes after the news broke out. The increase somewhat subsided later, with the futures trading up 2.9% around 11:30 GMT. Corn and soybeans futures also saw increases. This also happened after Moscow earlier on Monday notified Ukraine, Turkey, and the UN Secretariat of its refusal to extend the Black Sea grain deal, guaranteeing a safe trade corridor for vessels to export Ukrainian grain out of Black Sea ports. Russia pulling out of the deal means that it will no longer provide security guarantees for civilian vessels traveling the exempted corridor of the Black Sea. According to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, Moscow will return to the deal once all parties concerned implement to previously agreed steps. Part of what the concerned parties agreed is for Russia's connection to major agricultural lender Roselko's bank to the SWIFT payment system and lifting Western sanctions that pose problems for the insurance and logistics of Russian cargo. But Russia said no progress has been made regarding their benefits from the deal. Prior to the termination, Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly warned he will suspend Moscow's participation and described that the Black Sea grain deal was a one-sided game all along. Meanwhile, a protester abandoned his plan to burn sacred books in Stockholm despite being granted permission by the Swedish police. RJ Perez has the news.
A man who was expected to burn the Torah scroll and the Christian Bible outside the Israeli embassy in Stockholm during the weekend cancelled his controversial plan after receiving massive criticisms from top Israel officials and Jewish organizations. Speaking in both Arabic and Swedish, Ahmed Alush told the crowd he had never intended to burn the holy books, but instead denounced the burning of the sacred texts, such as the Quran in Sweden. The 32-year-old protester, who was also the organizer of the demonstration, said his real intention was to show the people that burning another Torah, Bible or Quran in a Nordic country is not right and will only lead to war. Sweden earned condemnation after the Swedish police granted a permit for the protester to burn the sacred text on Saturday. Holding public demonstrations in Sweden is strongly supported by the government and is protected by the constitution under the fundamental law on freedom of expression. But the Swedish police pointed out there is no law prohibiting the burning of holy books, but the police can refuse to allow a demonstration if it jeopardizes public safety or incite racial hatred. Meanwhile, the Muslim community of Malmö, Sweden, gathered at the city's main square last week to protest against the Quran burnings in the Nordic country. This has been RJ Perez reporting SMN News.
The Philippine envoy to China has a message for Chinese investors who made investment pledges during President Bongbong Marcos' visit last January. MJ Mondihar is back for more news.
Despite the cold winter and the remaining health protocols at that time, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos had a successful state visit to China from January 3 to 5. The Marcos state visit resulted in several significant achievements, including the signing of 14 agreements spanning agriculture, infrastructure development, maritime security, and tourism cooperation. Additionally, China has opened its doors to Philippine durian exports, a lucrative market currently dominated by Thailand and Malaysia, with Thailand exporting durian fruits worth $4 billion annually to China. The visit also garnered $22.8 billion in investment pledges and involved discussions on supporting Filipino fishermen and the possibility of restarting joint oil exploration in the sea. Fast forward to this month, with President Marcos' second State of the Nation address upcoming, the country's top envoy to China is now working double to ensure that those pledges materialize. But this will only happen if Chinese investors fulfill their pledges.
Ang mensahe ko rin po sa ating mga kaibigang Chino ay deliver. Yun po ang kailangan nating mangyari ngayon. Hindi po pwedeng press conference lang o photo op o pirma-pirmahan lang, no?
Floor Cruz emphasized that the administration aims for tangible benefits resulting from the recent state visit. They hope that these projects and programs will be implemented promptly.
Ang gusto po nating mangyari bilang suporta sa ating administrasyon ng Pangulong Marcos ay madala talaga ng investment, ng projects, ng tangible benefits. Yun po ang gusto nating mangyari at kaagad. Hindi po na dahan-dahan lang o bagal-bagal lang.
Referring to lessons learned from the past, Floor Cruz mentioned that at this point, the Philippines looks forward to positive developments in the friendship ties with China.
Kasi iyon po ang lesson natin ng mga nakaraang panahon, na maraming pangako, maraming mga inaasahan, pero parang kaunti lang ang nangyari.
President Marcos described his meetings with Chinese President Xi and other Chinese officials as cordial and fruitful engagements. They engaged in comprehensive discussions about the overall state of bilateral relations between the Philippines and China, covering various areas of cooperation, including agriculture, energy, infrastructure, trade and investment, science and technology, and people-to-people ties. For Government of Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
Just recently, the ACQ College of Ministry successfully conducted its 8th commencement exercises in Davao City, producing hundreds of theology graduates who are now ready to take on the challenges ahead of them. Luvelin Sato has details.
Hundreds of theology students from the ACQ College of Ministries Incorporated have successfully finished their theology courses and received their diplomas and awards as fruits of their labors. Students from the ACQ-CM are trained and equipped by the message, lessons, and words of God, and of its founding president, Reverend Dr. Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, who continues to instill in them wisdom, integrity, and excellence. The ceremony's commencement speaker, Dr. Randy Tudi, the Education Supervisor 2 of the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, also applauded the graduates and Pastor Apollo for the values and excellence manifested in the institution.
To the good pastor, Dr. Reverend Dr. Apollo C. Kibuloy, we would like to thank you, Pastor, for really having this vision of providing opportunities for students to become leaders in the future. And not only leaders, but they will become apostles of the kingdom. They will be the warriors of the sun. And your vision is now being manifested and realized. At this very moment, we have now graduates. So I would like to thank you, Pastor, for really doing this, not only for the Davao region, but this is for the world.
Pastor Apollo has also sent his message to the graduates, delivered by Dr. Eleanor Cardona, the KJC's Executive Secretary.
It is with great pride that I express my utmost joy for seeing a new batch of graduates from our beloved and highly esteemed ACQ College of Ministries. Our mission is beyond life itself. That's why it's called larger than life. It's bigger than our biggest ambition. It supersedes every ambition any man could ever have. This is the greatest mission in the world. And you are every inch blessed and privileged to be on the same boat, to be in the same league, to be part of this mission. And today, as you step out from the corridors of the ACQ College of Ministries, you are commissioned for a higher purpose that is beyond this life, that is beyond your comfort zone.
The good Pastor Apollo also stressed the need for every graduate to be excellent in every way and live with the values of unwavering faith, obedience, loyalty, and dedication to the Almighty Father, with Pastor Apollo as the example. Moreover, the graduates also expressed their utmost gratitude to the ACQ-CM's founding president, Dr. Reverend Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, for tirelessly molding them into becoming a valiant warrior of the sun.
We thank our beloved pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy, for all the teachings that he has taught us right from the start. When I was still a greenhorn in this field, I have nothing to offer, but he instilled in me all the kingdom values and principles that are really useful as I go along in my spiritual journey. So thank you, Pastor, for the success of this significant milestone for the 8th commencement exercises of the ACQ College of Ministries. We love you.
Pastor, maraming salamat po sa pagkakataon na binigay niyo sa amin para makapag-aral sa ACQ College of Ministries at makagraduate po. Maraming salamat, Pastor, for providing all our needs, not only physical, material, but most of all spiritual. We love you, Pastor. Thank you for everything.
Pastor, noon iniwan po namin ang aming pag-aaral dahil nais namin na makapaglingkod ng lubusan sa kaharian. Muli, Pastor, marami pong salamat sa binigay ninyo na pribilehiyo na maging kabahagi po dito sa ACQ-CM College of Ministries.
Pastor, thank you so much, very much po talaga dahil nakagraduate po kami dito sa prestigious school, ACQ College of Ministries. At the same time po, thank you for equipping us, lalong-lalo na po ako bilang maging katulad mong great leader po dito sa buong Kingdom Nation. Thank you po, Pastor. Thank you, thank you.
Karon, Pastor, kami karon tungod nimo nadawat ug naangkon ni namo ni mga butanga nga wala gid namo gina-expect sa among kinabuhi. O pinagi ni Pastor sa imong pagmold kanamo, pagmatuto kanamo, paggiya mo kanamo sa kamatuoran ug sa kaluwasan, Pastor, isip nga mahimo minimong katimbang. Amog yung ihatag kanimo, Pastor, ang imong expectation kanamo nga maghatag mi og excellent result.
Una sa lahat, nagpapasalamat po tayo sa ating pinakamamahal na pastor, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. Kung ano po kami ngayon, Pastor, kung paano nyo kami tinuruan, kung paano po ninyo ibinigay sa amin ang lahat ng values at culture ng kingdom. At kami po ay nagpapasalamat, Pastor, sapagkat alam po namin na magiging kahantungan po ng lahat ng ito ay maging bahagi po kami ng inyong mission, Pastor, upang ipakilala po sa buong sanlibutan ang lahat ng kalooban ng Ama. Thank you, Pastor, at maraming salamat po.
To our beloved founding president of the ACQ College of Ministries, we are so very thankful, Pastor, of the great privilege that you have given to each and every one of us, especially that the ACQ College of Ministries is designed and established to cater all the spiritual needs, especially in the spiritual training of the Kingdom Nation. We know, Pastor, for without you, this success that we have right now, hindi talaga ito mangyayari, Pastor. Salamat po, Pastor.
These new graduates are now ready to be sent and commissioned as ministers, coordinators, and missionaries all over the world to spread the love and goodness of the Almighty Father, bring the light of the appointed Son everywhere they go.
From ACQ College of Ministries, thank you, Pastor!
This has been Lugalin Sato, SMNI News.
The first artificially bred young sheep finless porpoise turned 18 years old. Scientists and caretakers celebrated his birthday in Hubei province, China. Hannah Jane Sancho for the story.
Tao Tao, the world's first artificially bred young sea finless porpoise, entered his golden years by celebrating his 18th birthday this July in the Wuhan city of Hubei province, China. The average lifespan of Tao Tao species is 22 years old, but it still manages to glide through the water similar to a young porpoise. He is considered as the star by Beijing Dolphin Hall at the Institute of Hydrobiology Chinese Academy of Sciences and has been carefully attended since he was born on July 5, 2005. According to the Institute, throughout his 18 years, Tao has been at the forefront of studying the physiology, acoustics, and molecular biology of young sea finless porpoises. His existence has provided researchers with the unique opportunity to observe the growth and development of these magnificent creatures in captivity for the very first time. Tao Tao is also now a father of 3-year-old porpoises, Han Bao and Little Ju Ju. The latter is a second-generation artificially bred female young sea finless porpoise born in Beijing Dolphin Hall. The institute now has 11 young sea finless porpoises, out of which 4 have been artificially bred. According to the 2022 comprehensive surveys on the species, there were 1,249 finless porpoises in the young sea, which marks a significant rebound from 2017, when the figure stood at only 1,012. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Hannah Jane Sancho, SMNI News.
And before we end, may be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. When trials and testing come, our loyalty is always to the will and words of the Father. That's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit smninewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Fatima Nawzil. Thank you for watching Newsline World. And thank you to our beloved pastor, Pastor Polo Sikibule, for the opportunity to be a part of this program. May you continue to listen to SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.